well, hi everyone. My name is Hannah, and we are going to be learning about sensory strategies to help calm and self-regulate from occupational therapist Katie Zelinski. Katie currently lives in Cleveland, Ohio, and she graduated from New York University with a master's in occupational therapy. She spent her career starting in early intervention and then transitioning into pediatric clinics and more recently opening up her own business, the Well Balanced OT. She's currently providing mentorship to other OTs to help them feel supported and to thrive in their career. And Katie actually helped kick off our very first webinar in March. So we're really excited to have her back here today with us. And I am just going to let Katie go ahead and start her presentation for today.
Awesome. Can you see my screen? Just to double check. Okay, so today we're going to talk all about regulation and some of my favorite ARC tools to use. But before we do that, I do want to do a little dive into what is regulation and figuring out the strategies that we can use to best help our children or ourselves based off what their needs are. So we are going to look into that, but first we are going to start with what is regulation. So self-regulation is our ability to meet the demands of the world we're in by changing our level of arousal to return to a just right state. So let's break this down a little bit. And we're going to start with arousal because I feel like that word can sometimes be a little bit confusing. So we all flow in and out of different states of arousal. We have a low arousal state, which whoever said they wanted to be asleep right now is probably in a low arousal state. There's a just right state, and then there is a high arousal state. So low arousal is often when we are just waking up in the morning, we're tired, we are maybe a little bit cranky. It's not the best time to sign important papers or to have important conversations. Our brain just isn't able to focus and function. So maybe we get up, we get dressed, we have breakfast, we maybe work out before we get dressed. We take a cold shower. Our body is slowly using those strategies to help it go into that just right state where we have our best performance, where we're able to function optimally. When we're in that just right state, our brains are ready to learn, our bodies are engaged, we're ready to go. So let's think about, we might encounter something that is frustrating, or maybe we are running late to work, or we have a big presentation later in the day, and so our body's feeling a little bit nervous. All of those feelings lead to us going into that higher arousal state. When we're in the high arousal state, we also might be feeling scared or nervous, frustrated. Fight or flight, when we feel like we need to run from danger, is also in that high arousal state. For most of us, we are able to flow in and out of these states of arousal to meet the needs of our environment. So if we need to go to sleep, we start to go into that low arousal state. If we need to run from danger, we go into that high arousal state. If we are taking a big test, ideally we're in that just right state. Lots of people who have more dysregulation, or lots of kids, especially the kids that I work with, have trouble flowing between these states. They get stuck. And most often they get stuck in that low arousal state or that high arousal state. So why is regulation important? Being in a regulated state, in that just right state, is important for learning, communication, attention. I don't know if you've ever tried to engage a child or a person who is dysregulated in a task. They just can't do it because their brain is either trying to wake up or trying to run from danger. Their brain is not focused on whatever you're presenting them. It's just focused on, how do I make my body feel better? Regulation is important for impulse control. If we are dysregulated, we do not have a lot of impulse control. And then social emotional development happens when we are able to get into that just right state. So why does it happen? Why do children become dysregulated? This can also apply to adults. A lot of what I say will be focused on children just because that's the population that I work with most often. But these definitely apply to adults as well. So having a poor body-brain connection. So what does that mean? In the OT world, we might say that you feel that you don't feel grounded, or you don't feel connected to your body. Your brain and your body aren't communicating well. This often happens with our kids who maybe have some sensory processing challenges. They might appear to be clumsy or uncoordinated. These kids really use the adults in their lives to help them feel more grounded, to co-regulate. And we'll talk about that on the next slide. Encountering the unexpected is a huge reason why so many kids are dysregulated. So children have a hard time transitioning from into new routines or tolerating change. I was watching a video the other day, and a mom told her child that she was going to be making carrots for dinner. And the child was like, awesome, carrots. I love round carrots. And this is what they're probably thinking. I love round carrots. We're going to have round carrots for dinner tonight, or coin carrots for dinner tonight. So they're cut in little circles. Well, the mom finishes cooking the carrots and she places them on the table, and they're matchstick. And the child completely dysregulates and has a meltdown. Well, that child has just been spending the last 30 minutes expecting to see these round coined carrots on their plate, and they don't. They get these long sticks. And so they don't necessarily have that flexibility to be like, oh, they're different. Okay. They get stuck, and they get stuck in that dysregulated state because they were expecting one thing but got another. For these kids, doing a lot of preparation, talking about change is going to be really, really helpful. I often suggest the day before something big is going to happen, or there's going to be a change in routine, to discuss it, to talk about what their day looks like, or to prepare them. So that mom who was making the carrots ideally could have said, we're making matchstick carrots tonight, or we're making whatever it is, but giving them the explicit information to help their body prepare for it. Sensory overstimulation. So we all have sensory cups, and every time we engage with our world, and the world is constantly providing sensory information for us to process, we are filling up our cup with little drops. So when you are eating a maybe crunchy breakfast, or there's construction outside your house and so there's lots of noises, drip by drip, you're filling your cup. For many of us, we know what strategies to use to help us pour a little bit out of our cup to help our bodies and our brains feel more regulated. For some individuals who have trouble with sensory processing, their cup fills and fills and fills, and they don't know how to dump some of that out. They don't know how to regulate or use those strategies. And so as their cup gets more full, it overflows and they have that meltdown. Things like being tired or frustrated or hungry or anxious or in pain are all things that can lead to dysregulation. Excitement. And I find that this one is always sometimes a little bit surprising, because you think, oh, they're excited, they're happy, they're not dysregulated. Lots of excitement when you're in that high arousal state can lead to dysregulation. So if you think about November and December and being excited about the holidays and seeing family and presents and all of those things, those are the times where typically, especially with our kids, they have the hardest time maintaining that just right state, that regulated state, because they are so excited about what's to come. So just something to keep in mind when you are thinking about, is this person dysregulated? Maybe why are they dysregulated? Know that excitement can definitely be a cause. So what is co-regulation? I mentioned it super quick on the slide before, but it's when another person helps an individual regulate through the use of self, modeling, positive attachment, and support tools. So like I said, I think that we often expect our kids to be able to regulate much earlier than expected. I think that, I know that co-regulation leads to the ability to regulate our feelings. It teaches them how to process feelings, and it helps them feel better. So co-regulation isn't just for kids. I know that if I'm having a bad day, I come home and I want to hug my husband. Or, if you're that person who has a pet and snuggling that pet, we use other people all the time, calling a parent to help process our feelings. All of those are forms of co-regulation, and they help us feel better and process our feelings. But when we're talking about children, it helps them learn how to self-regulate better as they get older. So 5 simple ways that we can help kids co-regulate. And this is I focus on this because this is one of the best free tools that you have, is really yourself. So giving a hug, providing that deep pressure can help co-regulate. Being present. So putting your phones away, taking 10 minutes out of your day to just spend with that other person and focus on that other person. If we are talking about kids, let's engage in a child-led activity where they are leading how we play. They're in control of it. Maybe we're narrating, but we're focusing on that child. Just being present and sitting with that child is going to help them regulate through any emotions, anything that they're feeling. Modeling deep breathing. So instead of telling a child, adults as well, because I know as an adult, if someone tells me to take a deep breath, I'm like, don't tell me what to do. But kids feel the same way. And so instead of telling them what to do, and remember, if they are in that high arousal state, their brain's not paying attention anyway, I will just take a deep breath and model it for them. I keep going, and ideally they start to imitate. We're providing that model to them. If the child's really young, I'll place them on my lap and they can feel my breath, and that will ideally help them regulate their breath as well. Using your tone of voice to calm or to increase arousal. So if somebody is in that low arousal state, I will use animated gestures, and I'll play around with the tone of my voice. So I might increase it a little bit or use like a sing-songy, voice when we're playing. But if that person needs to regulate and calm, like down regulate, then we are going to talk in a more calm, slow tone of voice and cadence. And then we want to encourage regulating activities. How do we know which activities are right for the child? Because there is a difference. So we are going to talk about the different characteristics of arousal, whether you're in a low or a high arousal state. So I won't go into all of these, but we know that being in a low arousal means we're likely going to be sluggish. We might be lagging behind. We're going to have limited attention. If we're in a high arousal, you might notice some anxiety, more avoidant behaviors, running away is a big one, hiccups. That's actually a stress sign in babies, and that continues as we get older as well. And then most people are familiar with the later stages of the dysregulation, that aggression, the crying, and the meltdown. When they get into these like last 3, co-regulation is the best way to support them. Using tools and strategies at this point isn't going to help. They just need to get through the meltdown, and being there and being supportive of that person is really the only way to help. When we see these other characteristics, then we want to provide those strategies. When we see those earlier signs of dysregulation. I know that sometimes we think the child goes from 0 to 100, even some adults go from 0 to 100 without any warning. There is always some warning that it's going to happen. We just have to pay attention to what those cues are and learn what cues mean that they're starting to dysregulate. I think it's really important to note that these behaviors are not an attempt to manipulate. They are not an attempt to control the environment. They are an attempt to ask for help. They are the body's way of saying, I need you to help me help my body. For our individuals that are in that low arousal state, alerting activities are really beneficial. So if we think about movement, movement is a very alerting activity. So if we go into inversion, so upside down, if we do lots of rotary and spinning, if we do fast-paced movements, vibration can also be very alerting. It can also be used for calming for those high arousal kids. When you're thinking about high arousal, also think about resistive, deep pressure. So those big hugs, stimulating the proprioceptive system through pushing and pulling and crashing. All of those things will help a child who's in that high arousal state get back to a more just right state. So we are going to talk about some of my favorite tools, but first, I want to share some of my rules when picking tools. So I always want to emphasize that these are tools, not toys. I think self-regulation tools often get a bad rap because people use them as toys or refer to them as toys, and often they're marketed as toys when they are tools that help individuals focus better, that help their brains work better. And if we call them toys, they typically, I know in schools, we'll go with the fidget spinner, were banned in a lot of schools because they were being used by children who did not need them. And so they weren't using them effectively. That kind of goes into number 2, which is the child or adult, whoever's using them, should be explicitly taught how to use the tool. I never want to be like, here, use this, without showing them how to use it. If they don't have the knowledge, then the tool isn't going to be effective. They're out of order. Each tool should be paired with the child based on their needs, arousal level, and sensory profile. So we also don't want to have a box of tools and just, show it to the child and say, pick one. We want to think about what tool that child needs based off their level of arousal, like we just talked about, whether they're in a low or high arousal state, what their sensory profile looks like, and what their needs are. And then lastly, ideally, the tool does not roll away and is small. Bonus if it is also functional. So I'm going to close this down and show you some of my favorite tools. So a lot of the tools that I'm showing you today, to make it a little bit easier, can be beneficial for both low and high arousal presentations. And I will, as I go through each one, I will explain that a little bit more. But the first one that we're going to talk about is the Z-Vibe with the pencil attachment. So this is part of the Tranquil writing kit, but you can buy the pencil attachment independently. I absolutely love using vibration in my sessions. And if you didn't watch it yet, the very first webinar that I did, we talked all about the Z-Vibe and the benefits of vibration. So you can watch that for free on YouTube. So I won't go into a ton of details about the Z-Vibe, but vibration can be both alerting and it can be calming depending on the child. So when you are using vibration, it is important to try it out and see how the child responds and see if the vibration is helping turn their body on, or if it's causing more dysregulation. So I chose this one because the writing attachment, the pencil attachment, makes it super functional. So they also have a pen attachment and a crayon attachment, but you can use this Z-Vibe. You turn it on, it provides vibration every single time you are writing. And so it provides a lot of vibration throughout your day to help you regulate. Prior to the Z-Vibe, I was using like a clunky massager, which is not super functional throughout your day, but this makes it super functional and it helps bring that child to that just right stage. Someone loves the Z-Vibe. I do too. Next up, we are going to talk about the chewing And I have the robot pencil topper to show you. So this is the green one. Here's an orange one. So chewing. Chewing can be helpful for both low and high presentations, but there is a difference. So if somebody is in that low arousal state, they're tired and sluggish, we want things that are crunchy. So I want you to take a second right now. We've probably been sitting here for just about 10 to 15 minutes. I want you to think about what strategies you are using to alert your body. Are you chewing on something? Are you tapping your foot? Are you drawing on paper? Are you doing any of those things to help your body stay focused? All of those things are tools, just like all the ones that I'm showing you, to help your body attend. And chewing is one of them. So that low arousal state, you want crunchy things like pretzels or carrots or celery. When they're in the high arousal state, you want things that are more resistive. Chewing provides that proprioceptive input to the jaw that allows your person, child, adult, to chew on and get that deep, deep input. The robot topper comes in just like many of the Chewies that ARC has in different strengths. So the green one is the extra tough. You can see that I can bend it. So one of the reasons why I really like this one for self-regulation is not only are you getting the proprioceptive benefits of chewing, but you are also able to take it off your pencil, hold it in your hand, and use it as a fidget. So you can bend it a little bit. And so I'm showing you the extra tough one. This is the extra, extra tough. You'll see that it's a much, much harder to bend. So if you are someone who likes chewing but also likes fidgeting, I recommend just going with the extra tough. If you are someone that just really needs that chewing, they maybe are destroying shirts, or maybe they are chewing their hair or chewing on eraser like tops of a pencil, go with the extra, extra tough because it is harder to destroy and will provide a lot more input to the jaw. Next up, we have one of these. So this is the Wingamajig. This is the dragonfly Wingamajig, but there are different designs that you can get. What I love about the Wingamajig is that it allows the body to, sorry, I get distracted with, not distracted, but I enjoy playing with this. It allows the body to move just a little bit, just like I was asking if you are clicking a pen or tapping your foot. It allows the body to fidget in a way to help your brain focus better. This one is great because it also goes on top of a pencil or is held in your hand. So it's small. If it drops, it does not roll away, just like the robot does not roll away if it drops. So meets my rules. But what I love about this is you can tap it, and so it goes down. It's giving you a little bit of visual stimulation if you are trying to alert your body, to wake up your body, stimulating tactile system, stimulating your visual system. If you are using it to help your body calm down, it also provides some proprioceptive input. So if you get the two wings close together and you just give it a little push, you're getting a little bit of resistance in your fingertips, and then you release, and then you push again. You can take the pencil off so it's just in your hand. And so you're getting some of that proprioceptive input, which is very calming. I love that if you're a student, it can go under the desk, it can go on your hand. It can be very discreet on top of your desk. Another awesome thing about this one is, so I didn't talk about breath work at all, but deep breathing and breath work is very, very regulating. So with this, you can use your breath instead of your finger to have the spinner go up, to have the wing go up. Another way to get that regulating input and help our friends regulate better. Next up, we have the weighted pencil. So weighted pencils are often used for people who need more proprioceptive input. So if you think about those individuals that really like to push and pull things, to hang from things, to get that heavy work into their body, and it helps them concentrate better. Well, we can't necessarily do those things in my head when we're at work or when we're at school. So the weighted pencil allows you to get some of that proprioceptive input while you are working. If you are using it with a younger child, I do recommend to use one of the shorter golf pencils, so it's not as long. But another thing, so all of these come off, and again, it can turn into a quiet fidget that you can use kind of discreetly. The weights can rotate around the spinner, and so you can push, you can pull them, you can spin them. Also, when it drops, typically doesn't roll away, small and fits in the palm of my hand. It meets all of my criteria. Next up, we have this Buddy Bite. From the name, it's obviously used for chewing, but I also use it slightly differently. So these legs are great for chewing, great for getting to those back molars to give you that proprioceptive input, but I really like to use it as a hand tool or a hand fidget. So these legs are great for squeezing together. The Buddy Bite comes in 3 different strengths. So you can see me squeezing this. This one takes a lot more effort. I can't even get it all the way down. So for those kids who really need that deep pressure, that proprioceptive input, this is great. If you've ever been in hand therapy, or if you're a therapist, it reminds me of a like hand strengthening thing that you would use to squeeze together. It's giving you some of that deep pressure without having to have a lot of movement happening into your body. Another reason why I love this is your fingers can go in the different holes. You can twist it around. So if you are a person that maybe like twists at jewelry or twists at your clothing, this is a great one to use without having to destroy clothing or break a necklace. They're awesome. Side note, I use these all the time as tongs. So if you are looking for more ways to incorporate deep pressure with your kids or your clients, we use these to pick up items and do transfer tasks. Picking up food is a really fun way. Instead of using chopsticks, you're using these legs. Kids will have a blast doing it. So lastly, we have these sensory bookmarks. So they come in sets of 3. And let's see if I can get in there so you can see it. You'll see that there's 4 different textures on the bookmarks. So the lines, depending how your finger is stroking it, the lines are a bit smoother. And then you have the bumps, which are providing more texture, more input. So I love that these bookmarks are functional. You can keep them in your books. You can keep them in your pencil case. You can keep them in your pocket. And I love that they're providing that tactile input, that little bit of movement that you can get with your hands, so the fidgeting aspect of it. And it is super transportable. I think that's the word I'm looking for. So if you are a teacher, or if you're an OT, you've probably recommended or used Velcro for our kids that like to fidget with things, and you put the Velcro on the desk and it sticks to your desk. Well, instead of sticking that Velcro to the desk and having to take it off every year, I think this bookmark is a great replacement. These small little bumps feel like Velcro to me. They're a bit rougher. And it is giving you that same input, but now the child can take this bookmark with them wherever they go if they need that bit of input throughout their day. It is super flexible. Sorry, I'm reading questions. Super flexible, but it also, so which makes it easy to put in your pocket, but it also can be used as a little bit of a more of a hand fidget as well. So meets multiple needs. So those were all of my favorite tools. We're going to pass it back to Hannah to see what questions are out there.
Thank you, Katie. That was wonderful. Yes, we do have some couple questions that came through. What is the difference between a meltdown and a tantrum?
Okay, so a meltdown typically happens because of sensory overstimulation. So their sensory cup is full, it overflows, and the child becomes so dysregulated that they melt down. With a meltdown, it does not go away. So you think, okay, I'm going to give them this thing and they're going to stop crying. It doesn't happen. Like it can take a child 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes an hour to recover from a meltdown because their sensory system is so overloaded. When there is a tantrum, it typically happens because we have said no or we have taken something away. And if you give that thing back to the child, their crying stops immediately. And so that response is a really easy way to identify whether something is a tantrum or a meltdown. Both are forms of communication. Both are trying to tell you something, whether it is my body needs help regulating or something's going on, I am, need some more support of a tantrum. I will say the best way to avoid tantrums is to stick with your words. So stick with what you say. If we say, no, we can't have this, or if we say, no, not today, stick with it, because if they cry and then you give in, they know that next time I'm just going to cry a little bit longer and that person will probably give in. So stick with your word, but also still try and use that opportunity to connect with that child. And that's kind of really what they want anyway.
Yeah. All right. This is a question about teachers. So if teachers are not on board with tools in the classroom, if they think they will be distracting for other kids, for example, what can we say to help them understand?
So I explain that these tools are necessary for their brain to function. And instead of coming from the point of view of it's going to distract the class, let's come from the point of view of let's educate the class. Can maybe, if this is a therapist, asking, I might offer to come in and give like a little like presentation or something to the kids and talk about all the different tools that we use to help our brains focus. I think it is really hard when we say, hey, Johnny's going to be really distracted if this kid uses this tool, but also this kid is really distracted without the tool. So like, there has to be a happy medium. I sometimes will say, let's try it and see what happens. Because if we try it and we're effective, the teacher can see a difference in the person using it, but sometimes it takes a little bit of effort to get the teacher on board. I will also say that I think that making it easier for the teacher to implement is going to make them more receptive and more willing to use it. So even if we are, taking away some of the tools, but using activities in the classroom that they can do that are embedded in their day naturally. So depending on the age of the student, if there are classroom jobs, having those kids that need that movement and need that heavy work to water plants or be the door opener or to be the librarian and bring books to the library, and having the teacher see some of the changes for the better may help them then be more accepting of implementing tools.
Right. All right. So let's see. Someone was asking, so these tools are awesome, but my son gets aggressive when he's in high mode. What calming techniques can one use without objects when they are in the heat of the moment and won't easily accept a device or object?
So when they are in that aggressive state, never offer something. Their brain isn't in the state to be able to accept it and to be able to use it effectively. They're just in protective mode. So that's where that co-regulation comes into play. If that child is being aggressive, we want to make sure that they have a safe space. So whether that be a tent or their room or a sensory space, we want to make it as friendly for that child as we can. If they are in a state of overstimulation, we want to decrease what's overstimulating for them. So if they respond negatively to noises, we want to make sure it's quiet. If they are over responsive to visuals, we're going to go in that tent and limit how much that child sees. We want to make sure that they know that we are there to support them. We are, maybe you're sitting inside the tent with them, or you are sitting outside the tent if they don't want you right next to them. Maybe you're not saying anything at all, but you're just in their sight. You are using yourself in that moment to help them regulate. The tools, in those scenarios, you really want to look, there likely is a characteristic or a behavior that you see ahead of time, or maybe you haven't seen yet, but there likely is some thing that you can identify before the aggression happens that will help you say, okay, now is the time to use a tool.
Yeah.
Once it gets to the aggression part, it's just a little bit too late.
Yeah. Another question. Do you know if the two tools cause problems with TMJ?
I don't think so. I don't know for sure. I've never had a child or adult or anyone respond that has happened. These kids who are seeking chewing are going to do it, whether they're using a chew tool or something else. We want to make it as safe as possible for them. And I think using this versus not giving them a tool and allowing them to chew on other things is probably more dangerous than the possibility of like TMJ happening.
Yeah. Let's see. Another question we have here. Do you think shoe necklaces or pencil toppers are better for the classroom, especially in terms of cleanliness?
I think depending on the child's needs. So some kids do not want to wear necklaces. Other kids will love it. I think it's great because it's with them at all times. It's not going to drop on the floor. So if cleanliness is something that you are thinking about, the necklace ideally stays on them, but those even sometimes will come off depending on the child and like what their mood is. The pencil topper is nice because they are, every time they're picking it up, they are seeing it, but it is going back on their desk. So think about that piece to it. Also then educating, if the child's a little bit younger, I might then go with just the necklace. And as they get older, you can talk about like cleanliness factors with using this. So maybe they put it in a special spot when they're done chewing on it. Or maybe they have something or they know how to like wash it off if needed. So I think it's all about educating the child, but the age will probably affect that.
Another question, does giving someone a Chewie encourage them to chew on other things? So if you give someone a chewable pencil topper, does that teach them to chew on pencils?
It might depend on the child. I think that most of the time we are giving them the tools because they need it. They are indicating ahead of time that they're already chewing on something. If a child isn't a chewer, I probably wouldn't necessarily give them that pencil topper. I'd give them something else that would help them regulate. This is where understanding what that sensory profile for that child and how it's helpful in picking your tools. So if they're a chewer, they're naturally going to chew on things anyway. If they're not a chewer, we're going with something different.
Yeah. Okay. And a few people have asked about tooth grinding. Aside from Chewies, any suggestions to help prevent tooth grinding?
The Z vibe. So I will turn the wrong way. Turn it on, and obviously not the pencil tip, but you can use one of the different tips or the back end of the Z vibe. And oh, I was going to talk about this and I didn't. So thank you for bringing it up. So vibration to the joint is going to help them decrease that chewing. They might pull away. I don't force anything, but then I might come back to it or allow them to bring it to their face. Using the Z vibe for different points on your body can be very regulating. So if you use it here, if you use it on your chin, if you use it above your lip, or even like the top point of your forehead, are all really regulating spots, and providing that vibration will definitely help. But to the TMJ is really helpful. Also massage to the TMJ. So I'll come in with both fingers and massage. Again, sometimes they'll resist. Don't force anything. But both of those things will help decrease grinding.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for the questions. I hope that helped. Katie, do you have anything that you'd like to add before we go?
No, that's it. Thank you so much for having me. I think you guys might be getting a link with your copy of the recording. I have a regulation guide that goes into everything much more in depth and has a lot more strategies and activities that you can use, and definitely includes some of the ARC tools in there as well. So you guys will have access to that as well.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Well, wonderful. Thank you guys for attending, and we hope you guys learned something new today. And thank you, Katie, again for hosting another webinar with us, and we will see everyone next time.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.